Welcome back, it's Mike Newton down here at Lytham Golf Academy, and I've got a little bit of experimenting to do in this video here today. Recently done a video and review of the new TaylorMade M6 Rocket 3-wood, which is a 14-degree 3-wood, and I think possibly a club that may be suiting a golf that may struggle with a little bit with the driver, but wants to get a little bit more accuracy, but still wanting to keep some ball speed up there. And I got some pretty good ball speeds with that, around just getting over that 160 mile an hour mark, so it wasn't massively short from where my driver is. So it got me thinking as to what sort of ball speed I get with a driver of the same loft. So what I've got in my hands here is an M6 driver, 12 degree, but I've cranked it up 2 degrees to 14 degrees. So it's a lot of loft for a driver, as you well know, but it's the same loft as this Rocket 3-wood, but obviously I've got it in a driver head size and driver length of shaft. And I'm really interested to see what the difference is in the ball speed off the club face between these two clubs. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this video, so stay tuned and we're going to do some testing. So just before I jump into the video, if you haven't already subscribed and you enjoy the content I'm putting out there, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon to get notifications. As soon as a video lands on my channel, you'll be prompted and you'll be the very first ones to watch it, so you won't miss a thing. Also follow them up on the social media platforms, both Instagram and Twitter, and the handles there are at MN Golf Coach. Okay, so two M6 products here. We've got injected twist face with the driver. We've just got the twist face only, no injection in the fairway wood. Two very similar, as close as I can get it. It's just a little tiny bit of weight difference here. The flex is exactly the same, but as I say, I've got this driver cranked up to 14 degrees. Now, before you start commenting here, this driver clearly isn't spec'd to me, but all I'm really interested in looking at here is the ball speed as it leaves the club face. What it does spin wise is obviously going to be pretty high with that higher loft for my sort of speed. But as I say, I'm more interested to see what that ball speed off and what the difference is. Now, driver length, the standard length of M6 driver is 45.75 inches in length, which is what this is, and the Rocket 3-wood is 42.25, so it's 2.5 inches difference in length. So obviously that should create a different club head speed, and in turn should create a little bit of a different ball speed as it leaves the club face, but we'll see, and maybe interested to see what that difference is. So I'm thinking for the golfer out there who may again struggle with driver, that length, possibly that head size, they might not like the size of these big heads, but they like that smaller head and maybe that little bit more accurate. So we're going to start with the driver first. I'm going to hit a batch of shots and then we will move into the Rocket 3-wood. Okay, that's a lovely strike and that's gone really high. Obviously 14 degree loft for me is going to go high. I'm probably not going to get my longest hits out with this makeup, so that's gone 281, but I say we're not too interested in the distance, and that's just 162 ball speed. Again, lovely strike. Pretty neutral ball flight there. I just pulled a little bit up that left hand side. The strike was very central. Again, flying high, 277. Again, 162 ball speed. Now, obviously, some of you may see my ball speeds in maybe other videos be around that, maybe 165 to 167, 68 on really good hits. Now, I'm going to see a drop off here because obviously I'm hitting it with a more loft at impact, so we know more loft is going to create a slightly slower ball speed, not so much because of the club head speed, purely because obviously the angle of the head's bent back a little bit to create the more loft, so tiny bit more glancing blow than I would use in my typical sort of 9 degree area for a driver. So moving this loft up from a 12 to a 14, as we know with the TaylorMade neck sleeve, it's actually going to close the club face as well, so this looks, to my eye, horrendous. It looks a lot of loft and it looks like it just points left to me, so a bit of a hard one for me to sort of look at, but as I say, we're not interested too much in that, it's more that ball speed. Yeah, again, feels good, strike's good, working up that left hand side, you know, club face is pointing a bit in that direction, and a very similar number again, 281 and around 160 ball speed. Okay, a few more shots to hit. Okay, Feels good. So there's some shots hit with that 14-degree driver. So driver head, 45.75 inch in length, and obviously in that 14-degree loft. So I'm going to move into the Rocket 3 wood now, batch of shots with that. Okay, so Rocket 3 wood in my hands now. So clearly some changes here. Head size is massively different, obviously a lot smaller again, and that sometimes suits the eye of certain golfers out there. And obviously that shaft length is changing by 2.5 inches, which is a considerable amount. So be interested to see, number one, difference maybe in clubhead speed with that 2.5 inch difference. Probably expect to see more clubhead speed with the driver than the Rocket 3 wood. But the important bit here is the loft. It's still at 14 degrees, so it's identical loft to what we're seeing in the driver. So again, thinking about ball speed, that's what I'm really sort of interested in maybe sort of seeing. So let's get this first one hit. Now obviously I've got this on a T-peg, but it's a much smaller T-peg, as you'd appreciate, because the depth of the face is very different to the driver. Okay, that's solid. Very different sound there, I think, because the size of the head, very straight shot. Size of the head, very sort of different sound coming off the club face, much more muted there. So that's 282. So I know we're not talking too much distance there, but that was very similar to driver. That was 162 ball speed. So looking similar ball speed at the moment against the driver. Now, when I set up to that, obviously with that difference of shaft length, the confidence I think just jumps up another level. And again, find that a lot with fittings we do. Sometimes we tinker with shaft length for guys in the drive, and as soon as we go shorter, you can see the confidence just pops up another level. Just feel like they've got a little bit more control. That's definitely what I feel here with this 3 wood. And yes, the head's smaller, so sometimes you think, well, I'm slightly off. It's more of a worse hit than obviously the size of the face that we've got in a driver. But I think with this shaft length, it does make a big difference to that. That feels lovely. Nice flight again. Very similar to that first one. Maybe not quite struck that as well, possibly, but it's still done exactly the same number, 282. Yeah, 159 ball speed, that one. I didn't feel like I got that as solid as the previous one. Okay, so there's 6 shots hit with the Rocket. Feels really good. The strike was really struck those really well, to be honest there. So 278 that last one, very similar sort of distance I'm seeing. Shot number 4 was a bit of an iffy one. I turned that one over left. That was a bit of a hooky one there. But let's go and look at those numbers, a little bit more detail between that 14-degree driver against the 14-degree Rocket 3 wood. Okay, so let's have a look at some numbers between those two clubs. We've got the driver on the top, Rocket 3 wood on the bottom. So clubhead speed, 115.2 average with the driver against 112.9 with the 3 wood. So as expected, we see a little bit slower clubhead speed, obviously because of the shaft length difference there. So there's nothing untoward there as we look at it. Now, ball speed, this is one I wanted to look at. Really interesting here. So 160.9 ball speed with the driver against 161.4. So I actually got half a mile an hour more ball speed on average with the 3 wood than the driver. That's an interesting one. Bearing in mind, I have dropped the clubhead speed, so I've not gained clubhead speed to create extra ball speed. I've actually dropped clubhead speed, but gained ball speed. So there's obviously a strike element involved here, which takes us into another subject of that. Shorter shaft length can obviously help strike, and I've done a video on that. Many of you maybe have watched it, but I'll put a little link and you can watch that in a little bit more detail, how it really concentrates strike. And I definitely felt that a shorter shaft length, a bit more control. I definitely struck those a lot better and more solid and more repeatable, and hence my ball speed is up there on an average higher than the actual driver. So very interesting there. Launch angle there, a little bit lower there with the 3 wood. Again, it's a shorter club. CG is probably a little bit more closer to the face, well it is, than maybe the driver. So that's probably creating more of a penetrating sort of ball flight as it comes off. So maybe just helping towards that slightly lower launch. Spin numbers down a little bit more because of that, probably that launch a little bit there. So 3.1 against 3,600 with the driver. So peaking out very differently through its flights of 45 yards peak height with driver, 36 yards with the 3 wood, and distance actually hitting the 3 wood further at 264 carry and quite consistent as well, really, on that carry number and that total distance. Just had that iffy one mid there where I missed that long way left. That was obviously more me. It just scattered me dispersion there, because apart from that, 12 yards was my most offline with a 3-wood there, where the driver I had a 43 left. And a 24 left, but obviously we know maybe don't take that into account too much, because when I loft up the driver it closes the face, which isn't great for me. So obviously I've got more of an average missing left with the driver than the 3-wood because of the face setting. But there's more of the loft I wanted to look at, a little bit of the length as well in terms of that club head speed and how that translates into ball speed. But I think really some very interesting numbers there. Right, okay, so interesting little test between those two. And like I say, when I did the review of the Rocket, it just got me thinking with that ball speed, how that maybe compared to the same loft but in that driver size head with that driver length shaft. And it's really interesting to see that I've actually got more ball speed with the 3-wood and a little bit more distance with the 3-wood, and probably a little bit more control as well, apart from that one blip I had there, which definitely was more me than the club. But really interesting to see the differences. I think the reason why I sort of did this, again, I see so many golfers will opt for the 3-wood because they lose the control of the driver, and the confidence obviously then gets sucked out of them a little bit, whereas the 3-wood, you gain that confidence. They're slightly shorter in that shaft, helps a little bit more the control, that little bit more loft in the 14 degree, helps a little bit control, and they sort of see, well, there's not a lot of difference between the distances between a 3-wood and the driver, same as what I'm sort of seeing there, to be honest. So they'll always opt for that 3-wood, but then they think, well, I should be using a driver. And obviously you've got to get fitted right, and obviously through a fitting process, maybe shaft length, if you're in that category where you hit 3-wood more consistently and better, and then your driver is a bit more erratic, then you've got to look at the strike, haven't you, on that club face. Strike definitely got in a more concentrated area with the 3-wood for me on that particular test, and it has done with driver when I've altered shaft length in previous videos that I've done. So obviously that's through a fitting process of getting the right shaft length fitted to track your strike pattern. So if you're in a fitting and your fitter isn't tracking strike, you know, he should be looking at where you're striking on that club face, because that doesn't make a massive difference to ball speed, spin numbers, launch, everything like that. Okay. Interesting one there. Post comments down below. I'm really, obviously, as always, interested to hear what your thoughts are between this little experiment here, and tell me what you're using. You know, does your 3-wood go as far as your driver? Do you get more control with that? Is that something that you more tend to opt with off the tee, or do you see a considerable difference with the driver? Hopefully, you would do, because you're going to be fitted properly. Fingers crossed. But as always, you know, interested to hear your thoughts. So post comments down below. If you haven't subscribed, enjoy the video, enjoy the content I'm putting out though. We've got loads more planned going forward, so you know, do hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you get notifications, so you'll be the first ones to watch it. Obviously hook up on my social media platforms, both Instagram and Twitter @MNGolfCoach, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.